everyone. I beat you to it, Julie.
Julie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well.
And Jeff?
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you. Good evening.
And Chanel?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good. So today, guys, I thought we would kind of follow up on our topic of conversation. So last week we talked about the mental health and the impact of people in COVID. And so this week I figured we follow it up with some other stories. How a particular pandemic seems very similar to when they had it in 1918, and how to minorities and the inequalities as they were 100 years ago compared to how they still are today. So I figured we have a discussion, and we also might touch base on a couple of articles of different stories that people might be interested in knowing. And things that you guys think might be the same now as it was 100 years ago, 102 years ago.
I think for me, it's a health disparity, and that is a huge umbrella for several things, but pretty much access to healthcare and affordable healthcare, access to quality healthcare. A lot of these communities or neighborhoods for low-income individuals don't have access to those type of healthcare services, and if they do, they're not that good quality. We're talking about your local, maybe county health department or things like that. So it's not very quality healthcare. And then with here in North Carolina, a couple years ago, they didn't do the Medicare expansion, or the Medicaid expansion to include individuals that were either you had to be a child under 18 or and then qualify based on income, or you had to be a elderly or someone senior citizen to make sure you got the Medicare. But for Medicaid across the board, you didn't meet those. It wasn't expanded for North Carolina. So that automatically cut out young adults and the able-bodied working individuals that may not qualify for health coverage through their employer because they're working part-time, or may not be able to afford it as far as policy and coverages for health insurance. So I think that's kind of where it starts. That's the same thing that's happening now was happening 100 years ago as far as access to quality insurance and affordable health care.
Yeah, especially since they shut down, they wouldn't allow people to apply for the Affordable Care Act insurance, even though losing their job was one of those things that trigger you being able to apply there. So I found that interesting that our government did not allow that during this process, and has not allowed that during this process. That to me just didn't make any sense. Jeff?
So funny you talk about the Affordable Care Act. I find it really interesting how they tried their best to cancel it, and then right before we get this COVID, the timing just sounds real funny. I just thought about that as you said that. But I think part of the problem is just a lot of misinformation out there as far as what we're dealing with. I'm probably the same as back then as now. History seems to repeat itself, especially if you don't know the history. And it seems like that's what we're dealing with today. People just aren't aware of really what's going on, the severity of it. And if you don't take the necessary precautions, just like back then, it can be catastrophic. Another thing I find interesting is how people will discuss the numbers and say, well, the numbers aren't as bad as, whatever. But this is still a fluid, live situation. And we don't know what the numbers are going to be 6 months from now, a year from now. They could be, just as big as some of the other instances back then if we don't, take the necessary precautions. But a lot of people don't seem to want to do that.
Dion?
Jeff, you just led my thought into it, like from a thought, like the work that I do the most of in mental health and stuff like that. It's amazing when I read this article, Chanel, how like it's 102 years ago, like Alethea said, but it's really like you could take it and crop it, copy and paste it, and just overlay it into 2020. And so when we even use, it's almost like an oxymoron, Jeff. Just when we say history repeats itself, we're supposed to be having a new type of future, and things of that nature. And you look back into articles and information from over 100 years ago, and it just really leads you to how do you keep trusting it? How do you keep staying optimistic? How do you keep being hopeful? And at the same time, you really do have to deal with the health issue that's going on. And like Alethea said, just reading through the article, people of color or without substance a certain way, without access, like you said, Chanel, they were treated possibly in basements when the Spanish flu came around. They said some of the city workers in Baltimore, some white city workers, they refused to make any more grave room for people that had passed away from the Spanish flu. And if I could just, before I get going, the Spanish flu, they even said, didn't come from Spain. It already has a racially inappropriate intention seemingly behind it. It didn't even come from Spain, as the research has proven. It comes from some more Caucasian areas, and things of that nature. And it was amazing and phenomenal to see some of the headers of the articles and in the newspapers that were published in America, in the eyes of the American public. You have to be very encouraged internally. You have to use your own self-motivation to get better, to be better, to do better, to even do like our ex-First Lady said, rise above them. When they go low, you go high. Because this information seems to be, like Jeff said, it's as new and as old. They're one and the same. It's like, what is really changed? And I did find some light points that came through all of that. And yeah, I can't wait to get to discuss them. But yeah, I'll reserve some of my time. Yes.
Julie?
So I want to piggyback off of what Jeff said about the history repeating itself, misinformation. And, but I just think it is repeating itself, but it's in a more sophisticated manner, if you will. But then we also need to take the old information that was given to us that probably people back then did not take it seriously, but now they're seeing it come to fruition now. So for example, on the information I share with you guys, it says Nostradamus wrote in the year of 1551 that there will be a twin year, 2020, from which will arise a queen, Corona, who will come from the east, China, and who will spread a plague virus in the darkness of the night of the country with 7 hills, Italy. Now, if they said that many years ago, and we're seeing it now.
That is amazing.
I mean, we might need to take hold of what people are saying back then and move it forward to now and really take heed. And to Jeff's point, just take precaution at the end of the day. We all want to live at the end of the day. Listen to the historians because they are historians for a reason. They have proven facts, Jeff, of things that have been proven. And so let's take heed.
Yeah. And the excuses from then is the same as they are now. One of the other things that I read that I didn't really care for was how the Black soldiers were used during the pandemic. And the experiments that they did with that chloroquine medication, they tested it on the veterans. So I don't like that. It's like every time you turn around, we're being tested for something. These different tests. Let's do it in Africa. Let's do it here, something. And so it seems like we, break out to be some form of a, you know, I don't know, it's just the term is hard to disseminate what I should use for, but it always seems that it goes that way. But then the other correlation is who's
Term is
to
a bunch
blame?
of bull. That's the term.
Yeah, but it's who's to blame. And now they're trying to shift the blame now
Yeah.
on the Black Lives Matter protests. We wouldn't have the outbreak if everybody hadn't went to the protests. A lot of the protesters had face masks on. It was being
Yeah.
sprayed in their faces with the pepper spray that if anybody was asymptomatic would have caused the spread of it.
Oh, wow.
They
Yeah.
don't feel that even though the people who had their guns in the Capitol building in Michigan,
Right.
they caught the COVID. Nobody seems to be fussing about the fact that they were spreading COVID after their little stunts. But now
Wow.
they're saying the Black Lives Matter protests is what's causing the outbreaks in all of these cities. That people had stayed home and not been doing these illegal things. Protesting is not illegal.
They got to blame it on somebody, right?
So
I
Herman
mean-
Cain. So Herman Cain was at a Black Lives Matter movement.
No, I'm sure he
was
wasn't.
not.
I'm
Thank you,
confused.
Jeff.
I don't remember.
Thank
Don't
you,
remember
Jeff.
either,
I don't
Jeff.
remember. I know I saw him smiling. Rest in peace.
Mhm.
Not trying to be funny, but I don't remember if he was at a Black Lives Matter movement
Right.
or what.
It was on
But
Juneteenth, though. It was on the day before Juneteenth, rather. Yeah, it was the day before Juneteenth, though. But it won't Black Lives Matter.
But see, this is where you got to know your history, because just like you said, Alethea, they tested on troops back then. Well, now I think a couple weeks ago they say they want to test on. Well, no, this was a couple months ago. They wanted to test on people in Africa.
Yep.
You know, and then I glanced where they said the testing won't be effective without African Americans being used in the test studies. So people just have to just look and pay attention to how everything comes back full circle.
Yeah.
Why they always want to test on us? Why?
Right.
Why we always gonna be the guinea pig? Why we always gonna be
Good
first?
word.
It wasn't even in Africa at the time they want to test in Africa. Why don't you take it to Italy? Why don't
Yeah.
you go over to China? But no, they want to go to Africa and do it in Africa. But see, again, this is why you got to know your history. You can't be so trusting. Oh, they want to help us. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
You got to study your history. And then once you understand and know your history, you can be better prepared to handle what's going on today, so you can be even better prepared for tomorrow, because you
Well
can
said.
anticipate their moves, because their moves are scripted.
Yes.
Very much
Get
so.
over
Well
and
said,
over and
Jeff.
over. So once you know that, you know, then you can be like, okay, I've seen this movie before. It was just in
Right.
it was in black and white last time I saw
That's
it.
what it was.
This time
That's what it
it's in
was,
high
Jeff.
definition.
Yes.
Now it's in high definition. I
It's
can
black and white.
pause. I
Right.
can pause this movie this time. Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
I think I've seen this part before. So yeah.
Look for
Let me pause this. Yeah,
That
let me
is-
rewind this real
Yeah.
quick. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
So you gotta
Yeah.
know the history, and people just don't want to study.
Yeah.
And you
Jeff,
have to.
that's so well said. Just two or three things really quick to kind of marry even what you and Julie said. I heard Al Sharpton say this before. We're not dealing with Jim Crow anymore. We're dealing with James Crow Esquire. It's not in black and white. It's in Technicolor, anime, and all the other living studios. You know what I mean? It's a different look, but it's the same old thing over and over and over. What Alethea was talking about, like how they did the testing. Let's just fill out this word, what test means. Because Jeff, you use that word guinea pig. It's often not a test to see if you have something, and it's been proven. It's a project, a guinea pigging to give you something and see how it responds in human beings. So the testing is fatal sometimes, intended. It's as a fatal intention or lack of vital care. You know, I don't care what happens to their lungs. I don't care what happens to their genitalia, Tuskegee. I don't care what happens, you know, to other things. Henrietta Lacks had her cells duplicated because they were amazing. You know what I mean? And so we do that. The spread, like they said, the troops spread it back then. I read an article, man, from this article we're discussing tonight. Chanel's from 1917. there was a migration from the South at the beginning, Alethea,
Yeah.
of the Spanish flu. There was a migration from the South to the bigger cities in an effort to move away from Jim Crow, right? They said in a Chicago article, they said Negroes move to the cities and it creates a public health inquiry. It was in 1917, an article in Chicago. A year later, when the pandemic, watch this, Jeff and Julie, when the pandemic is like going crazy, it talks about those same Negroes. It describes them in this same paper from Chicago in 1918. It says, darkies move from Dixie only to try to create a better life for themselves. So a full-blown pandemic is going on. You're blaming it on Spain, Spanish people and Spaniards, and it didn't come from Spain. You're saying black people are spreading it where we are, and things of this nature. And the troops that you're hiring to do protect and serve, you're even adding it to the guinea pigging or the testing of them. And you still look up in the morning paper, and on the paper it says, if you're in Chicago, it says this darky is trying to better himself. It was amazing to read these things, and like Julie and Jeff kind of said, it was amazing to recognize, which we have recognized, the sophistication of it. You know what I mean? It's not a baby no more. It's a full-grown adult with a degree and a business to keep you at a certain bay. It feels and seems like. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
And people fall for it every single time. Why do you keep falling for the same okie doke? When do you learn? When do you learn the game? Game recognize game. When do you learn the game? No, seriously, it's all a game. Game recognize game. You gotta know the game. You can't be so trusting because they may not have your best interest at heart. Once you can just accept that as a possibility, then you can take a step back like, okay, wait a minute. This is what they said. Let me do a little research and see if this is really for my best interest or is it for someone else's best interest. You just got to take a step back and look, and it just repeats, and it's just different wording, and people fall for it every single time. It's amazing.
And 98.99999% is for their best interest. It's for their gain, not for my best interest.
Exactly.
It's for somebody else. So.
And it's always constantly having to pay attention. Nowadays, we have to pay attention to what people are saying and what it actually means. I saw a newscast this morning. I don't have to say the names, but the name of John Lewis was brought up, and his legacy and what he did for African Americans for his career, so that generation after generation can benefit from it. Someone asked this particular person in an interview, John Lewis, and did he do a lot for Black people? This person chose to say he did more for African Americans than anybody in the history of the United States. Only one person that says that thinks that in an election year. You know, it's like they tear apart the legacy and the memories of these as opposed to what is. And if we don't look past that, if we don't find a way to inform and everyone will find those, like Jeff said, falling for the okie doke. You know, this is a time to be fully aware of what's going on, what's they doing, because don't hear, they don't get to pay attention to. And if you have that level of chaos going back and forth, you don't know if you're coming or going. And this is why people are getting tired of the process of what we need to do to protect our families during COVID, the financial burdens that some people will come upon if the Senate don't start. Again, the purpose of this show is to, you know, inform you, enlighten you, but also to spark your mindset for having our own businesses. And I'm sure Jeff is going to have a lot to say about that, because that's where we need to be. As a people, that's where we need to be. And it starts simple. Don't think, oh, that is a stream of income for you. And it's like, it makes you wonder what they thought about when they decided Black Wall Street. What weren't we getting from the white people that we had to create our own town so that we could flourish and that our people can have this, this, and this? I watched a movie called The Banker, and I know from the Avengers movie, but I keep it, Anthony Mackie, him, and I like him personally too because he's still building houses in New Orleans, and but they had to finesse the system. They got this white guy to work with them, help them buy these banks so they can own their banks. We have a lot of Black-owned banks in the United States now, but you don't see or hear about them. You know, some of them I didn't know about until I started scrolling the list down at LinkedIn. Jeff?
Mm-hmm.
And Chanel, you got something you want to add to that? I see her sitting over there. Sometimes I watch Chanel and it's like she had double dutch and she's just waiting.
Coach, put me in. One thing I thought about when we were talking about the test, something that always comes to mind is Planet of the Apes. Look at Koba. I don't know if y'all, I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan. So you had Caesar who was, like, hey, let's just be peaceful to these, humans and just let's coexist. And Koba was like, no, absolutely not. Look at what they have done to us. Look at, what they've done to our people. No, we're not gonna go that way. And I think we're gonna continue to see that. We saw it in 1918 and beyond, and we're seeing it in 2020 and beyond as well. So that's something that always comes to mind when we're talking about these human trials and these tests and Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Another thing that came to mind when we're talking about health disparities is it's not just the access to insurance and affordable health care as far as providers, but there's so many other things that go into the barriers that come to this population, or to a lot of us, period. You have affordable housing, access to healthy foods. A lot of these neighborhoods are in food deserts. You have the transportation. What if I don't have transportation to get to and from the nearest doctor? Or what if there is no public transportation in my area because I'm in a rural area? But there's so many different levels and layers to, the barriers to overcoming these health disparities. So something I think that we can continue to think about as we have these conversations.
Yeah, I agree.
Janelle, did you say food desert?
Yeah, they've been talking about that.
Listen, this terminology is so accurate. Because there are many people that believe that the way their lenses, their eyes see the world is the rest of the world. But I have worked directly with people. The difference between the word desert and dessert is there's two S's, and you learn how to spell it because if you like your favorite dessert, you want to get two pieces. You know what I mean? But if you've ever been to the desert, you do not want to go back there. You don't. And that kind of language is so, it ties in, it makes me think of what Julie was saying about their interest. In 1920, around about the culmination of all this pandemic, there was a census and a presidential election. Mm-hmm. It's what Jeff said. It is.
And that's exactly what we're in the middle of now.
It is as plain as what you read and research. It's a historical pattern that we can get around and maneuver and work in. And that terminology just sent my mind into all of that, because it does the serving their interest versus the reality that other people live in. It becomes a conundrum. And I love Planet of the Apes too.
I do too. I cried when Caesar got killed. I'm just gonna put that little part in there. It hurt my heart when they killed Caesar. But the other thing too I wanted to mention, and pity pat off of what Chanel said, is you have these people now, little changes and not getting it. There's something I've been wanting to say on this for general, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this platform to do it. So the Republicans are thinking, because they're getting that extra $600 a week for whatever the state is getting, because not everyone is benefiting from 950. We're not complaining about it, but not places. You understand what I'm saying? So you have that particular issue. And then what Chanel was talking about, transportation to and from work. I know a young lady that she can't get back and forth to work without the Uber. So she couldn't go to her job, but she didn't qualify for unemployment. So there's these different disparities, and they try to make it seem like is, you know, everybody's going for this, that, and the other stuff. And Peter was saying too, evictions and everything started up again this week. I saw them in my own community. Young lady sitting there, she on the sidewalk. Nobody was helping her, just her and her kid. If you don't have a moving truck to put your stuff out, you see the stuff on the sidewalk, or you see the maintenance people put it in the dumpsters. And it's happening.
Tell me this, Alethea, was it she like she had been provided some COVID relief?
I don't know.
Because you know that was some of the first part, like don't pay your bills and we'll take care of it later. And I told everybody, just listen, don't go for that. If you are a habitual bill payer, you need to continue your habits. Don't do that. Don't let them do 3 months and get behind and you wake up and it's no water and no lights and none of that other stuff. Okay, so yeah, she got put it. That's terrible.
But here's the other thing too. People are assuming that a lot of the people that are unemployed actually got their unemployment. It took me 6 weeks to my first showed up. And and I'm really beginning to think it's on purpose, because that keeps the unemployment rate down. The unemployment rate is based on how many people are getting checks. So if people drop off or out or have used up certain programs, all of a sudden it looks like, oh, we had a dip in unemployment. It's not because people had jobs, it's because y'all cut them off. That's what they did in a recession. Oh, you didn't get growth. We got cut off. They cut us off for 6 weeks. And it made it seem like, okay, the unemployment was dropping. No one dropping. You guys took 6 weeks before y'all restored our unemployment. And when they did, they cut it 50%. Not on the federal side, but on the state side. They cut it 50%. In 2008, when we had that recession, unemployment in North Carolina was 4.97. Obama put a stimulus on it. It went up to 5.17, but he made it retroactive from when Bush didn't act on it. And so for a couple of months, we was getting them extra $100 checks a month. I had to call them, look, is this a mistake? I don't want to spend it. Y'all come back in. Yeah. But, you know, they went 6 weeks and we had no money coming in at all for 6 weeks. What are people supposed to do? You just cut me off. I'm already struggling. Your little $500 a week didn't replace my income. And the other thing too is if you lose your home, apartment complexes don't consider unemployment income. That's another issue that people get forced into. Hotels aren't taking people in long-term right now, at least not in our county.
And then if you get evicted, then now that's going to make it hard for you to rent.
Exactly.
But then when you find that unemployment, you know, you're always playing catch up. And then the question comes, do I get groceries or do I get my medication? Do I buy these diapers for baby or do I put gas in my car? Do I pay the water bill or do I pay the light bill? Because you have to make those choices when you're living on a fixed income or limited to low income or even moderate, income. Middle class is struggling too.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So as everybody was thinking, it just hit me. I was just like, okay, so we're in the month of August right now, right? So a lot of the relief that they were giving people, wasn't it 60, 90 days, which a lot of that time frame kind of fell in mid-July that you would have to, where you wouldn't have to pay this or you have a relief or such and such. Wasn't that kind of mid-July-ish that people would have the time? We're in August. This is August the 4th. So you're just talking about the young lady, Alethea, who was evicted. Can you imagine that we're going to probably see a bum rush, unfortunately, of families being put out on the street? Because we're past the July 15th deadline, or whatever that date is. So what can we do to what kind of resources can we share with people to kind of help them
Yeah, I've been looking
start now to get on their feet, because it's, that thing just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, we're in August now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that deadline was, I think, mid-July. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was, some of it was like by July the 20th, and then another one expired on the 26th or something like that. But there were some agencies here in Charlotte that were helping people, but they were overwhelmed, like Crisis Ministries. They were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They got a lot of different funding when the crisis first started, but they had to look at the biggest problem that they was looking at when this COVID first hit. There are already over 1,100 families living in hotels on a weekly basis that have been living in these hotels for a couple of years because they don't have money for anything other than to cover the hotel and barely feed the 3 or 4 kids that they're living in these 1-room, 2-bed hotel rooms.
Wow.
So Crisis Ministry had to get that money and save those families to keep those hotels from evicting them. So that had to go all the way up to the city council to get that process done. I don't see why it shouldn't have been any different, but that's what they had to do. And so you have those different people there. And then you have people who, again, still waiting on stimulus checks. They talk about sending me another check for what? I ain't even got the first one. Don't even know if I'm gonna get the first one. And so that $1,200 is not gonna help everybody. Hadn't helped everybody. And now that we know.
So you're saying the resources that's out there are running out of money, or they can't keep up because there's so many.
Exactly. Because the same thing with the homeless shelters. The homeless shelters had to shut down.
Yes.
The men have not had anywhere to stay but tents. Nowhere to stay but tents. They've been living in Tent City, they call it Tent City, off of Tryon Street under that trestle.
Right.
And so that's where they've been having them, because they shut the men's shelter down actually before COVID kicked in, because there was I forget there was a breakout of something, and it was a condition that no one's had in a while, and it's probably going to come to me when the show is over, and then I'll be texting all y'all saying, oh, that's what they had. But it was some weird infectious breakout that hit one of the shelters like late February, early March, and they started the rooms at the end that do the winter stuff. They had to shut that program down because somebody came down with one of those really rare diseases.
Wow.
They tested for it, and it was reported to all the places that apparently he told the hospital he had stayed in. And so the men's shelters actually shut down maybe a week or two before COVID was going to shut them down anyway. But then they're in the tents. Yeah. And here's the other thing, is where they eat. Where can they go to the bathroom? Everything was shut down.
Right.
City shut down. People not letting you in here, this, that, and the other stuff. That's a whole different world that we're not even thinking of through this. We got the people in the houses. How can we get them to stay? Some can't stay. But we already had people on the street that was living with this. And the other thing too is we wouldn't even know how they could catch it. And if they caught it, would they be counted?
Absolutely. That's been such a pertinent question in the work that I've been doing. That population is already hard to touch on a regular basis. So things like that. I will say this, Julie, I'm glad Jeff gets to hear this. I know he's got some things to do. From just like what you're talking about. What about the resources? How do you still help people? How do you still get it done? Jeff, you're gonna love this. From 1900 to 1930, there was a boom in Black entrepreneurship. And the reason it was a boom is because we were not included. And it wasn't we were only unincluded, it was we were rejected from white businesses and white establishments. They didn't even want our money. So it created a whole entrepreneurship ring, you know what I mean? And these became the new resources. And they become the community that you work in, live in, spend your money in, communicate with, and it's resembling of now. It said there's a quote that says necessity is the mother of invention. and creativity and entrepreneurship. I could throw right in there. We gotta depend on each other. You know what I mean? And we got to do not just the intangibles. That's church people love to say, "I'm praying for you." In my church we say we don't just pray, we pay. You know what I mean? And sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is and do all kind of other stuff. Not just the intangibles, but the tangibles. Black businesses, black banks, black this and that and the third. And it was born out of these times just like this, and we became the new resources. Yeah.
Jeff, because I know he set up a couple times.
All right. I'm on a history kick tonight. I'm going to just say black fraternities and sororities started right around that time. That's one. Mm-hmm. Number two, let me ask you this. When did the Spanish flu start?
1917.
1917, 1918. Alethea, you talking about people losing their homes and all of that. When did the Great Depression start?
In the 30s, Jeff, like 33.
Yeah, so it's right around all that's like setting up, and we head into another depression. And going to what you said, Dion, we had to start helping each other, our own community, out of necessity. And that's exactly where we're headed now, because companies aren't hiring. People are going to get evicted, and people may not think it can really happen, but if you go look back at the 2006, 2007 housing bubble, y'all remember that? When all them houses got repossessed and all them people got kicked out of their homes because they overfinanced, or they financed more than they could afford, and the banks did not care. They kicked everybody out, and all them foreclosed homes everywhere. That's where we're headed again. People just aren't really paying attention. And then going back to the homeless shelters, the money's drying up, and so they can't really afford to help. So we have no choice but to get back into the entrepreneurship, because we cannot count on anyone to help us. And again, if you know your history and understand the cycles, you can start to prepare before it really hits you in the face.
Yeah. And to Jeff's point, what he made was, we are looking at what happened in 2007, because my daughter, she works in mortgage, and their business has been booming since March, 14, 16 hour days with mortgage closing. These people are buy. The interest rate, if the interest rate is down for the money people, then the economy is good for them. It's just like that. And all that stuff, a little bit different regulations that are being executive ordered out, it's going to put us right back where we were at, and it's going to be worse. Like Jeff said, not the recession, the depression, and it's going to be something we haven't even thought that we would live through in our lifetime.
That's right.
Yeah, I gotta run, but I'm gonna say this real quick. The banks are in big trouble, because a lot of people count on these banks, but they have billions of dollars in retail property. Then that retail property is about to go under, and the banks are going to be footing the bill for that. So there's a storm coming that we have to be prepared for. And it comes back to learning how to take care of yourself, because we cannot rely on the government to help us and keep giving us these checks, because they eventually they're going to stop, and everything's just going to come to a screeching halt. And we must learn how to create our own and support our own, and we have no choice. So it's all coming back full circle. Like Dion was saying, there was a boom back in the early 1900s. We have to have a boom right now where we just support each other and help each other any way we can, as far as business and just helping people less fortunate. But we have no choice, but we have to start coming together.
Thanks, Jeff. And before you go, I want to make sure that next week we talk about how you feel about the payroll tax cut and how that can impact the economy as well.
Okay. Take care, guys. It's been a pleasure. Peace.
All right, bro. Peace. Well, I just want to say, Chanel, you can be the new Green Book. Is that the name of the thing with the...
That was, I actually been wanting to talk about that. I'm going to save my excitement, but yes, Green Book is definitely something that I want to touch on.
Absolutely.
Going back to Julie, I think, and Alethea, you mentioned this about the tent city. Did you hear that also this week, the property owner of that property filed a lawsuit to get
Yep.
off that property.
Yes.
Yeah, that's insane.
And here's the thing, that when I heard it, I was like, okay, so some of the other organizations must have talked to him, because before, what he was doing was, and maybe now he can't because Putney is not in place. But before, he was just calling CMPD, and CMPD was going through just kicking all that stuff there, had the trash truck coming and throwing everybody's stuff in the trash. That's what CMPD was doing before, because of that guy. And so now he's trying to do it the other way. So city council is trying to, but the thing is, something better can be done.
Yeah.
For 20 years, I've been in Charlotte, and the homeless people are kind of swept under the streets, under the blanket, under the rug somewhat. It's almost as if we know we have it, but we don't see it. Even down to the buses and the trains. The theory for, and I won't give away too much because of inside knowledge, but the theory for that bus line going down Tryon, the train is taken away from a section of the bus transportation on Tryon to usurp going by the homeless shelters. So the train kind of goes around it, don't stop nowhere near it, goes around it, so there's no pickups in that particular area. Then it picks up a different way. And now they're looking at discontinuing the bus line. Because that part of Tryon now is supposed to be turned into a one-way street. It's getting turned into a one-way street.
So it's like we know the problem exists, but we're just going to kind of turn a blind eye to it.
Yep.
There are resources in our community. You have Urban Ministry, which is kind of like a day shelter. They can go and shower and get mail and do laundry, get meals. Crisis that helps with, the financial assistance for utilities and rent. But once again, the need is so great that these small nonprofits cannot solve the problem. They're not the one solution. What we can do is start these nonprofits as our community to serve our community, but then also we can give. Black philanthropy is huge. Find these Black organizations or any organization that you choose that, has a cause that you believe in, and donate.
We had,
So smart, Chanel.
And volunteer, even at the men's shelter, we have to get people back to work. And there's so many barriers. You got criminal records, you got mental illness, you got health issues that prevent people from working, but upskill or entrepreneurship. We have to create these avenues to help get people out of these situations, to continue to elevate them, to avoid them being back in those situations.
So the pity pat off of what you were saying, Chanel, was very important. So earlier today, was looking for some different things, right? And so the Foundation for the Carolinas released their grant money to the different organizations that they're giving to or people impacted by COVID. And so they gave money to the Charlotte Pride. They gave money to the Charlotte Village Network. And that's to personal home activities for seniors, which is an interesting program. They also gave something to to provide emergency financial assistance, food, and internet access to seniors and families. They also gave to the Lakewood Neighborhood Alliance. To provide financial and food assistance to neighborhood residents. The Liberian Community Association of Greater Charlotte, let's see, for child welfare, to Pat's Place Child Advocacy Center. This is to work with staff and work with the youth for programs, education programs, and that's what people want to do that. They gave money to Crisis Ministries as well to do that. They also gave to a program called Classroom Central to help purchase and distribute backpacks and supplies needed if any of the kids are going back to school. And it's just a ton of them. If you scroll, it's about a good 4 or 5 pages.
Wow.
In under the financial rental housing assistance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 different organizations that they gave to. Catholic Charities is a big one. Catholic Charities is a big one. That's a big one that's statewide. So anyone outside of Charlotte, if you're in the state of North Carolina, Catholic Charities works, and some churches actually work with Catholic Charities to further determine what clients that they have. So there are a lot of different organizations out there. So if you go to Foundation for the Carolinas, and Carolinas would include South Carolina, not just North, you can
Awesome.
find it. They are, at least I do know, from New York down to Florida, there are programs called Family Promise. So it's a Family Promise program, and they're affiliated with other organizations that help to provide shelter for single women with children who become homeless or families. And so they work with different programs with churches and so forth with the Family Promise program. So those are resources that I do know on the East Coast. I apologize to anyone that's viewing this on the West Coast. We'll try to see if we can pull up some information and create a list, and we'll put that on the Mahogany Productions Facebook.
Awesome.
To Chanel's point, we want to make sure that everyone has access to resources that can help them during these times.
It's a very good thing.
Another thing I thought about, Alethea, we used to talk about, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's called the benefits cliff. So pretty much, I'm a working, I don't know, let's say, what is minimum wage? What is it still, 7?
$7.25?
Yeah, I think it's still $7.25.
Yeah, it's still $7.25.
$15 hour job, family size maybe 2 to 3. So I'm working, but I don't make enough for, to live in a major city like Charlotte, or to afford childcare, or the cost of living that is in this city. But then I also make too much to qualify for benefits. I can't get food stamps, I can't get Medicaid, I can't get child assistance, I can't get all those other things that I may still need. So I kind of fall right within that benefits cliff. So 1 or 2 things: I may stop working, or may not take a promotion or a pay increase or a better paying job because I don't want to lose my benefits. But then once again, if I'm receiving these benefits and I'm still making that low wage, I'm not able to elevate out of my situation, which is typically poverty, honestly. So that's something to also consider. So we need more organizations that are raising that bar for allowing individuals to qualify for their services. A lot of people want to help the low income or those that are in poverty, which is great. That's it's a need. But those individuals that are middle class or moderate, levels of income still need that support as well to elevate their situation and circumstance.
Yeah, that's true, because in 2008, they looked at me as hireable. So I don't know so much about you. Well, I could when someone wants to hire me, but right now, no one's hiring me either. Right? You get that for people. Oh, you'll be able to get a good paying job, but I still need help now, even if I can get a good paying job. So I need to use the swear word, but you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, is the spot that a lot of people find themselves in when they go to these organizations.
Sure.
When I had to go through it, Tashi was sick. I had to literally fuss about, she was entitled to Medicaid. They would not give it because to them, that $517 a week was more income than I could have for a 2-member family.
Improved. Mm-hmm.
Only by $69.
Amazing.
I said, well, that $69 really ain't even counted by the time I take the gas to keep coming back and forth here begging you guys for Medicaid. He told me, as sick as Tasi was, that because of that $69, Tasi wasn't eligible for Medicaid. And so I'm like, okay, my baby's sick. 3 pills cost me $169. Why am I not eligible for some type of medical assistance for my daughter. And this, they didn't know then it was the H1N1 that was making her sick, but still nonetheless. So now you got a mother who has sick kids. And if kids are in the wrong environment too much, you take a kid out of a home and you put them in a hotel, there's a whole lot of stuff that's going to pop into that. And Dion, I think that's one thing we haven't touched base on, is people dealing with these crises and how that mental health is with their children. You know, we talk about what we need to do to get the parents and stuff going, but if I'm a single mom and I'm really feeling you about this entrepreneurship, but I got 3 kids and it's highly possible I'm going to get evicted in the next 45 days, what is my inspiration to try to take this step?
Yeah, and the question you're asking, I'm certain it's not one answer to, you know, it is to trying to, you know, we preach idealism and hope and optimism, but we live in reality too, you know, and you have to be sobering, you know, for people, and things like the resources, and even in moments like what we're having now and they had with the Spanish flu, this creation of a different line of resources, even to speak to something Chanel said, like with the person that kicked the people with the tents off his property, you know, there's even a measure of care that's going to have to be involved. You know, nobody cares what you know till they know what you care. And, you know, people don't want to be recipients of things that are not given from a genuine heart, you know. Because if not, that becomes a tool of manipulation, kind of like what you said. You make $69 too much to get this for your very sick young child, but I've seen people receive food stamps for $13 a week before. And I wonder, well, boy, that's almost hypocritical. What do you think I could eat? Why did you waste the paper? What am I doing with $13 a week? You know, and so, yeah, it is an age-old question in a culture and a society like we're dealing with. You know, we like Chanel say, we got to get past the working poor, you know, the middle class. You know, we have to ascend, we have to rise, and that may take different measures that will. It won't be a sacrifice of one person's mental health. It'll be a fulfilling. You know, if I help someone that really needs help. But the way the culture and society has taught us, without a pandemic being present and racism being hidden and sophisticated, like Julie was saying, until it comes very bold-faced and to the forefront, till they shut it down and you don't leave your house, until you get that check and you have to wait for the unemployment check. They retro it. You know, they retro it for 6 weeks, but I'm 6 weeks behind. So it's not I have any working monies. You know, all my monies are still tied up. You know, Chanel, I read an article, it may be 20 years ago now. This is 2000. Yeah, it may be 20 years ago now. It said, based on the per capita income, kind of not just per family, but per person, Julie, said a person needs to maintain a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in the United States. They need to make at least $11.27 an hour, it said. The minimum wage is still $7.25.
So Dion, I'm gonna pity pat off of that with you.
Okay. Yes.
When I moved to Charlotte from New York in 2001, because I came down here the year of 9/11, right? The United Way said the income poverty level for New York in 2001 was $47,000 a year. $47,000. I'm working at a department store on Jamaica Avenue, I ain't making $47,000 a year. You know, if I'm working at White Castles, no matter how good their burgers are, I ain't $47,000 a year. You know, so $47,000. What do you think someone who just think they came up with a $30,000 a year job is going to do? And then back to what Chanel said, the social services wouldn't help me then. They had a work first program, and I'm not sure if it's still valid now, but with the work first program, they contacted me, said I was eligible for that. They gave me $432 a month in food stamps. They wouldn't give me no food stamps when I was homeless. But if I got a job and everything was okay, they gave me $432. Me and Tyson don't need that much food, you know. And then they gave me 200, I think for one child, it was like 222 or $232 a month. So you gave me 200 and something a month for cash and $432 worth of food stamps after I got a job. You helped me with before I got the job, but after I got the job, then you want to give me all this extra stuff to help me get on my feet. So I got on my feet by myself, but now you're going to give me this on my feet. But you said that the job offer that I had made me ineligible for any other programs that you had. But now that same job makes me eligible for 200 and some cash from you and $432 a month food stamps.
Well,
It's like,
You know,
God, Julie.
The only thing that's staying in my mind is what Jeff said before he left. He said we have to create our own, and we have to support our own and each other. And that means we have to surround ourselves with like-minded people.
Absolutely.
Until that happens, change is yet to come. And let's be honest, within our community, that's the hardest thing that we see is like-minded folks coming together to make a difference. So what do we do to make a difference? Come together and do what we need to do, like-minded folks.
Right. I know. Julia, I mean, that is simple yet profound. It is, I mean, it really becomes, it limits the conversations, it limits interactions, and maybe, I'm sorry, let me not use the word limit. It centralizes, it focuses. You know what I mean? It becomes more intentional than just shots in the dark. And I learned too, even this is back to this article. I'm gonna be done after this, y'all. Even back to this article we were reading, Chanel, I don't even believe myself sometimes, Chanel. This article we were reading, they were talking about the residual effects of minorities or people of color being infected with the Spanish flu and things of that nature. They would go put when I read it, I thought about the Scarlet Letter. They would go put like a mark on their house. Right? Mm-hmm. And it would turn into like stay away from over there, or it would be a target even for some of the racism that was rampant with policemen and even employment and things of that nature. It's those residuals that come after it. Like what you were speaking to, like what Jeff was saying before he left. This it's the recycle coming back around. We've seen it before. So we do have some maneuvering. We even have some strategic positioning, you know what I mean? And no matter where you are, even with the pieces that we have that come together with our conversation, look at the plethora and the amount of people it just can really serve when you put it all together. You know what I mean? Just from every aspect, all the way to how do we vacation from our vocations and things of that nature. Yeah. All of these become important parts of life. Yes.
Yeah. But the conversation needs to be started. And thank you, Alethea, for creating this platform to get the conversation started. Like-minded people coming together to figure out how can we help our nation and our world survive.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Exactly. And this also offers us an opportunity to reach people that we otherwise wouldn't be able to reach, right? And so what was interesting, Chanel, when we were doing the Pink Slip series, the shows and everything, I wanted to reach back out to that same shelter that I benefited from, right? When I first got there, the way they were sitting, body language speaks for everything, right? So that's one thing we can't hide is the body language. And I was looking at me like, I know this lady not gonna come in here and try to tell us how we gonna get out of the shelter. It's that mindset. But when I started speaking and when they found out they had more in common with me than they thought they did, then they wanted to listen. And then it opened the doors. And I wanted to do it. Didn't have opportunity to open it. And they're having those conversations with us. I think some of this stuff will carry on. And they'll start having the conversations with other people. And in time, as we grow, we can begin to see what type of impacts we can make outside of our forum.
Like Julie and Jeff said, I mean, it starts with, well, it doesn't start with, but entrepreneurship is one of those avenues.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We are some skilled people. We could do some hair. We can cook.
Mm-hmm.
We can create. I mean, just so creative and innovative as a people. Think about if we turn that into a business opportunity. So not only are we pouring back into the economy, which is great,
Yeah.
but we're also creating jobs. We're creating jobs for our neighbors who are struggling at a lower paying job. We're creating that generational wealth. So I think that is one of the keys to this. But on the flip side of that is, where are the resources? If I'm doing hair out of my kitchen, where do I go to get started? Who can support me? Who can mentor me to help make sure that I can start a business, that I have the great customer service, that I have the competitive and affordable pricing and the marketing and the strategic plan and business plan and all that other good stuff that comes along with, starting and being a business owner. I think that's something that we need to continue to talk about and supply that resources to each other.
And that's a good idea too.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead, Julie.
No, I was going to say, too, if COVID hadn't done anything else, it has caused us to be creative and innovative with less. Because a lot of people probably think, well, I don't have the money to start a business. It don't matter. Just start. Have the conversation with somebody. Verbalize your creativity, your idea. Put that thing in the atmosphere so it'll manifest. You never know what kind of resource will come your way. Have the conversation at least, and then you'll never know where you may end up.
Exactly. Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Even if you don't know who else you can reach out to, believe in yourself. Anything, and I'm going to have to pull from Whoopi from that movie with the gospel choirs. Anything you want to do,
Sister Act,
you can do. Anything you want to do, you can do. You can talk yourself out of something faster than anyone can take it away from. Anything you want to do, you can do. No one is any better, no smarter, anything like that. You're amazing how you'll find a lot of the people that started businesses, they didn't have college degrees. That doesn't mean you can't start business. They had college degrees. Some of them barely had formal educations. James Brown had a 4th grade education. Look at what he accomplished. We can do this. We're resilient beings. If it's in your mind and on your heart, you owe it to yourself to go for it. You owe it to yourself.
Yes. It's a shift of the mind. Change your mindset. And you gotta want to change your mindset to be better. And again, if you don't know how to, center yourself around like-minded people, or get around those people who that you aspire to be. It's simple, but I don't know. It's just, I'm like Jeff. I'm fired up now. I mean, because I'm sure, and I'm gonna speak for me, and I'm sure everybody on this panel can say, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, So I've had my struggles. I've had to learn the hard way. I, had to find out things the hard way. But at least I started, and going through those trials and tribulations sometimes can make you stronger and better for what God has for you in the end. He's just preparing you. That's all.
Yeah. And that's the purpose. We all have one. I believe we all have one. If we was all created so divinely, there's a reason and a purpose that we're on this earth, and so believe in it, trust in it. If you don't have anyone else to talk to, I walk through this house all the time and I talk to the main person I know that's listening to me because he gave me that purpose, right? And so
absolutely,
you do that. But here's the thing, sometimes you don't have to look for that person. If your mind and your heart is set on it and that door is ready to be open for you, you may run into that person in the most unpeculiar place that you could ever think of, and that person pops up. And sometimes it's just to even give you a word to send you on that journey to the next post that you got to do, so you can keep walking that path. So open your mind and your heart to what it is you know you're capable of, and I promise you, you'll find it and you'll get there. Yeah. And don't be looking
and
for
it's not a
overnight. Go ahead, Julie.
Right. And it's not a competition thing.
Exactly.
It is not a competition. There is so much out here for everybody to take a part of, get a piece of the pie. Stop trying to compete with your neighbor, because what God gave me is for me, and what God gave Miss Alethea Brown is for her, and Dion and Chanel. Walk in your purpose. Walk in your divine purpose of who God made you to be. And let's come together as like-minded people.
Exactly. I so agree. Dion about to jump out his skin over there.
I see it.
I talk to God and myself more than I talk to anybody I know. I mean, like, it is that imperative. You know, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's gonna have to feed myself first. And so everybody that falls under that umbrella, as far as my arms can span, everything that I do, I'm going to help and do as much as I can. And yes, Julie, like everybody is just echoed. It's just like never before. Come together with people that are like-minded. You've got to start somewhere. I mean, now is a great time to just go ahead and get started. And I didn't have anything but ambition to begin with. No formal education, you know, and I'm unashamedly Black, not African American. I'm Black, right? And I don't like to dress like they dress, and I like to dress like we dress. I like to listen, you know, and I had to not reinvent the wheel, you know, but I had to I had to carve out my own path, you know, and it has been a blessing over and over. And those moments of learning, like you was talking, Julie, those weren't those. I thought they were the failures, but those were the collegiate courses that I never got to take a certain way. Those were the master's degrees and the PhDs that I learned just by trial and error. And in moments like what we're living in, you know, this message, and like you said, Julie, thanks to you too, Alethea, again, just echoing it, what everybody says. A place like what we have, with a medium like we have, you know, it creates an opportunity to strengthen what you have, connect with those that are like-minded, and those that need the inspiration, even, you know, to keep pressing, keep pushing, keep going, you know, and things of that nature. I'm thankful to be a part again. Yeah, that entrepreneur road is, you know, it comes from necessity. You know, if you work, you know, I'm 47 years old. I started working when I was 14 years old, formally. Like, my mom had a friend that had a barbecue spot here in Winston-Salem, and he let me come and clean up, you know, and I would go work. And, you know, I haven't done jail. I haven't sold dope and all that other stuff. I've worked, you know, I've had babies and children, and I've had to work and take care of them, you know, and so, you know, at some point, even in the midst of that, you go, you know what, I wouldn't even mind making the same money, but at my own rate of pace and time, and getting up when I want to and going down when I want to. And you end up working harder for yourself to begin with and all that other kind of stuff. And even throughout, to keep it maintained and keep it going. You know, you do, but you know, that ownership of your time and your space and who you connect with intentionally, you know, it becomes a great reward. Yeah, that was awesome.
And we can look back, and so we know now we're in a recession, teetering into a depression. But if we look back as to how we made it through the 2008 recession and where we are now, are you in a better situation in this recession than you were in the one 12 years ago? Wow, it's been 12 years. Good Lord, I'm getting old. So you look back and see where you were then, you'll know how you're going to make it out now. You know, last time it was scary as I don't know what. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. This time it didn't have not had not one of the issues that we faced 12 years ago. That within itself is growth and planning for the direction that our lives are going. That to me has been the biggest blessing in that. I didn't have fear of what I was going to lose because everything was still in place. It wasn't in place when it started, but it was in place better than it was 12 years ago. And so I have to get that reminder, I'm doing better than I was before, and so it's those baby steps in our mentality sometimes we have to take so we can see sometimes we're not all as bad off as we thought we were. You get caught up in the panic of what you're going through, but sometimes it's not as bad as you think it is. You have yourself, and that talk with myself is my talk with him. So have that talk with yourself and get yourself through that part. When we get out in that we're not going to get out of it. We aren't opening our eyes to the vision of where that path to get out of it is. And so that's something we need to start focusing on as well. And there are a lot of people out there that are doing it. I know some single moms out there are probably doing it. Those people that are waiting on those eviction notices and sheriff and tapping at the door is doing it, but still there are ways out. There's a path out. And again, if you don't have somebody to talk to, work that situation out. You think it, you are better than, stronger than you could ever hope you could be. You're there. It's in you. It's not just us. We're not a special bunch. There's a whole bunch of us out there, but we've been blessed in having connections with each other that actually spanned over a few years. Julie, Chanel, I met the two of you around about the same time. I think maybe a year apart. Gian, I wouldn't even have met you if it weren't for Julie. Oh, by the way, thanks for that, Julie. And then with Jeff, having a long friendship with Jeff over the years. So we were meant to cross paths for a purpose, even if we didn't know, or it didn't start out what we thought it was supposed to be in the beginning and manifested itself into something totally different, and that is out there for all of us. We're not an exception to the rule. But trust and believe in yourself, the doors will open.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I've seen it on TikTok, I think, a couple of times. It may have been on Instagram. I don't know if you've seen this scenario where this father and his little baby, she's probably a toddler, and she's in the back seat, and she's in her seatbelt. And the father is asking her, do you need help? Can I help you? And the little girl says, she's struggling. She's struggling to get out of her seat. She's like, no, you worry about yourself. I got this. You worry about yourself. She's just steady. He's just like, you sure? No, you worry about yourself. So I say all of that to say to your point, Alethea, worry about yourself. Take care of yourself. And be great in who you are. Worry about yourself.
I agree. I agree. Chanel?
I know we talked about history repeating itself, and that could be whether it's 100 years ago or 12 years ago. It's going to continue to do that. But what we decide is what role or position that we play. We could be the coach. We could be the player. Sometimes we may be the water boy. Sometimes we might be the GM or the owner. You never know what position or what role you may play given any type of situation or circumstance. But also what Julie said is you're not competing with everybody else. The only person you need to compete with each day is yourself. Wake up and think about how can I be better than I was yesterday.
And Dion?
I want to echo what Julie said. I'm probably going to make it a little more ebonic sounding. But I've heard great preachers say, use what you got to get what you want. It's in you, and it takes moments. This is like a perfect storm almost for your creative genius to come out. And we, some of us here, and we've all experienced, the anxiety of trying to get going, then the backlash of trying to get going, and you get other people, but get around like-minded people like you've heard tonight, research and do your history. You'll be able to follow patterns better, and you'll be able to peek into your own future. just using your own ingenuity and your own creativity and inventive mind. You know, let this be a time of creativity for you. You've already, like Julie said it earlier, I can amen that. You've already been forced to figure it out a whole nother way. You couldn't go where you wanted to, when you wanted to, how you wanted to. So just let that breed in you, and it'll make for some of the ingredients of success.
I agree. I think that's kind of our great final words on that one, right? And we actually went overtime, so they got us a good show tonight. So we're going to use that as our last word. And as everyone has said, just believe in yourself. The Mahogany Productions Facebook page is there. We're going to start posting some of the resources that we talked to you about. And once I figure it out good, Julie introduced the poll button. We'll start trying to put some polls out there and find out exactly what other resources or what segments you guys want us to go into more depth about. And so this way we can start posting information for people, ideas for entrepreneurship that might be maybe some we'll get back to you. We'll respond to you and answer a couple of your questions and help you along the way. Again, this is a journey, and we're all looking forward to traveling.
That's right.
With that, we're going to say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye. I love talking to you.